Well, as promised, I said I would do a video showing how I shape the scales on my knives. This is a Jacklore classic standard sort of bushcraft design knife. I'm flattening off the sides of the knife, the scales rather. This gives me two parallel flat surfaces to work with when I go on to the next stage. You can see the scales have been flattened off. There's a gobby bolts fitted to this knife. Now onto my grinder, using a fairly coarse grip belt, and notice that on the side of the wheel there I've got a vertical work table and a flat surface which allows me to rest the scales of the knife against that, and then I can be sure that I'm going to keep everything at 90 degrees. I'm using a 4-inch wheel, which allows me to get around most of the knife's profile. The white pipe, you see, is connected to my dust extractor, which removes all the dust into a collection point outside, so it keeps the work environment really clean. Gone to smaller diameter wheel now, so I can get to the internal tight internal radii. Again, I'm just removing all that excess wood and glue to expose the tang of the knife. I'm working on the finger choil area now. This area is an area that I finish up at this stage, because once this area has been cleaned up and finished, I don't need to go there again. I'm just showing you now. I would have finished that finger choil area on a fine grip belt at this stage. You can see the actual profile is all cleaned up now all the way around. The camera's not focusing very well, but the finger choil area has been cleaned up and the plunge line areas. I've marked in the profile that I want to achieve with the knife, where the palm swell is going to be, etc. So just a matter now of using a coarse grit and the large tractor tyre wheel to remove the excess wood. This combination of belt and wheel will really chew the wood off and the metal if you make a mistake rather quickly. But with practice and experience, you can speed things up a little bit. And I've had enough practice recently to be able to go a bit quicker at it at this stage. It would be a bit of a disaster if you were to grind too much off. Because it's then a matter of having to remove the scales, which isn't an easy process. It's just hard work. So anyway, the scales have had at this stage also they've been dried in a drying cupboard for months. They've had a 24-hour glue-up session just to glue the fibre liners on, then they've had another 24-hour glue-up session to glue the scales to the knife, so you lose a lot of time if you make a mistake. I'm just adjusting the tracking wheel to move the abrasive belt over to the other side of the wheel. This allows me to work on the edge of the belt, on the edge of the wheel rather, and grind round a curve. If you can hear any noise in the background, I do apologise. I'm doing a talk over on this in my dining room, and my wife's in the other room watching TV. So there we have sort of first stage, or second stage rather, completed. Now you can see the profile. It's all oversized at the moment. I've gone to a small diameter wheel now, a 6-inch wheel, and I'm going to start to roll or make a barrel to form a barreling effect on the handle. You can see the dust being extracted quite effectively there, speeding things up. It's a long process, you know. The knife develops at this stage, you know, and I have speeded up as time's gone on with experience and practice, but it's still not a process you can rush. And you can see here I'm measuring with calipers. This is something I frequently do because I know at a certain stage I want that to be of a certain thickness and width at various points. Then I know that when I go to finer grits I can remove all the rough coarse scratches and still have the handle to be the thickness that I want it to be. You can see there I've just barreled one side up, the other side's still square. So now I'm working on that other side now. Again, speeding things up a little bit. I think this is 4 times natural speed. If only I could build them 4 times faster. Again, some more measuring going on. Those calipers are never far away, I can tell you. The quick up and down motion that I'm doing there just feathers things in, you know, it blends all the sort of curves in. I'm still on a fairly coarse grit at the moment, and I won't be grinding up close to the steel of the knife, not at this stage. Also, please note that I'm wearing eye protection, ear defenders and dust mask, even though I've got a dust extractor. It's not excessively noisy and it's always good to protect your hearing anyway, but what I find it does for me, it allows me to concentrate more. You become much more reliant upon your eyes and you just seem to zone in. As my mate John would say, become at one. So I'm just barreling a bit more carefully now, but again keeping away from the steel of the knife. And you can see that I've left flat spots on the wood close to where the steel is. That's intentional at this stage. I mean, other people might do it differently, and that's how I do it at the moment. And who's to know, I mean, maybe in a few months' time I might have learnt a better way and I'll change my processes. Here I'm grinding the corners off to make the butt of the knife, the pommel and apex shape. And I find this fits the hand, the palm better. If you're using the knife to say bang it into wood and then you're pushing it in with your palm, it just makes it a lot more comfortable and usable. So after all, the knife is a worker, it's designed to be used. I've changed the grits now, as you see the colour of the belt has changed to green. I'm on a finer grit, and with the finer grit it allows me to work to more finer tolerances, so I'll be moving a little closer into the steel now, knowing that if I do make a bit of a mistake, the mistake isn't going to be a catastrophe as it would be if I'd used a coarser grit. And also what I'm endeavouring to do is remove the scratches from the previous grits. I'm looking down the knife as though it was a gun barrel at the moment as well. Now this up and down motion that I'm doing here, this is allowing me to bring the wood in to the actual tang and blend it all in. Good lighting is important. You can see I've got an overhead light. Well, you can't see the overhead light, but I've got the two little spotlights as well, and I've got plenty of natural light. I normally do my handle shaping and my grinding in the mornings because that gives me the best light in the workshop. But I must admit I filmed this around about 3 o'clock this afternoon, so the workshop lighting wasn't as it would normally be. I'm continually assessing where I am with the knife, with how it's going, by looking at it visually, obviously, and feeling it with my hands, and you're gaining more information that way. It's beginning to take shape now. This knife hasn't got any fibre liners. Now I've changed belts again to an even finer grit, and now I'm doing the very fine shaping and polishing and smoothing on that tight internal radii, and just fine tuning a little bit here and a little bit there. It's amazing what a fraction of a mil taken off here or there will do. It'll make it change quite a bit. You'll be surprised. Gone on to a 4-inch wheel now. 4-inch wheel allows me to cover more surface area, but still gives me enough of a curvature to get into the fine into the finer curves. But I'm being very careful not to touch that drop point on the wheel, because if I do it, around it over. And again, you can see me sighting. I'm sighting along that knife like it was a gun barrel. Most of my knife making has been self-taught and through experience now of hundreds of knife builds. I'm onto the sanding station now with the device that Rob sent me. Any small discrepancies that I notice at this stage, rather than go back onto the main grinder, I'll take them out of a hand file. It's about a matter of shoe shining and polishing and sanding. I think here, no, they're sanding away again here with various different grits. I go down through the grits, finer, to remove the finer scratches with ever finer sandpaper. Sanding along the grain here. And I'm now polishing up the tang. Obviously this has been a very much abridged video. You're only getting a fraction of what I've actually done to this knife at this stage, but hopefully it gives you some idea of the effort that goes into a handmade knife, and why unfortunately you've got to wait for one. If you want a knife from me, you've got to wait for it. And here we are on a buffing station. Give it a buff. And finally sealing the knife in a linseed preparation using a vacuum chamber, a sweet jar which is yet to implode. It must have had over 200 vacuum cycles yet, so it's not gone yet. Using a motorised pump to take it as much as close as I can to 10 pascals. I think that's what the dial reads, and you'll see the air come out of the wood in a minute. Just beginning to see it now. Here it comes. It's like a froth on a beer, and suddenly it'll really get going. It's beginning to go, getting all that air out, and now it's going to start going mad. And you can see we're getting a lot of air out of the wood with the strong vacuum pump. It doesn't mess around. So remove the vacuum at this stage, and I'd normally leave the knife in the solution for the rest of the day. But for the sake of the video, I pull it out and just show you what it's like now, and then you'll see the knife. It's not quite finished at this stage. It still needs a bit more cleaning up and a bit more polishing and buffing on the handle before it's finally finished. And then of course I've got to clean the blade up, strop the blade, build the sheath, build the fire steel, build the dangler, emails, payments, etc, etc. And that isn't even going into building the actual metalwork of the knife. That happened a week or two back. So there we have the finished, or the almost finished knife. That's a walnut with Corby bolts and a tapered tang. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's been of use to somebody, and I hope it's given you some insight into the amount of work that goes into producing a Jacklore bushcraft knife. Thanks for watching.